Welcome to the What's Good Dough podcast and get ready to level up. But before we continue with the show, I want to introduce you to my two show sponsors, Uni Pizza Ovens and Cordo Olive Oil. Let's start with Uni. They are the #1 pizza oven company in the world with the best community there is. Because of their ovens, I have made some of the most amazing pizzas. From round pies to squares, I'm able to get to temperatures of up to 900 degrees, allowing me to cook the pizzas of my dreams. If you're looking to grow your pizza business, buying an Uni makes sense. My past guest Ryan of Sanctuary Pizza has a mobile catering company powered by Uni. These powerful ovens are efficient, lightweight, and can be used almost anywhere. Whether you take pizza seriously like me or want to run a pizza operation like Ryan, Uni is the choice for you. Use the link in the show notes and join the Uni community. My second show sponsor is Cordo Olive Oil. At first, I didn't believe that olive oil mattered. It wasn't until I got educated and learned about the difference between commodity oil and Cordo's fresh squeezed olive oil that I ditched the supermarket stuff. Today, I only use Cordo olive oil when it comes to making my dough and even doing a post-bake drizzle. I have even made some amazing pesto with it. Oh my goodness. Cordo's high quality olive oil does really elevate anything it touches. My buddy Chris, who runs A Slice of New Jersey, just switched over to Cordo. Not only is he getting quality, but he ended up saving money by switching over too. If you're still unsure of the difference, pizza operators can sign up for a free olive oil tasting. Use the link in the show notes to learn more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my show sponsors and supporting this show.
We are utilizing a 4-flour blend, sourdough and commercial yeast. It's fermented a minimum of 96 total hours.
That was Luis of Peels on Wheels. And it's your boy, Idriff, and you're listening to the What's Good Dough podcast. Whether it's pizza, business, or life, my guest and I are always talking about ways we can level up. Today, you're going to hear an amazing story of someone who is obsessed with pizza. Luis is making a very, very artisanal product. You know, he's selling novelty, right? It's something that you really can't get anywhere. And so we dive into that and see, is it worth it to put that much obsession into a one-of-a-kind pizza dough? And while I have an opinion on it, you should listen to the entire episode and judge for yourself. This is an amazing episode, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And remember to always ask, what's good dough? All right, I am very, very excited to bring this guest on. I have been eyeing their Instagrams, actually, both the business and the personal page for quite some time now. Luis from Peels on Wheels. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man.
It's a beautiful day. It's Sunday, and I'm here talking pizza with you. What could I be doing otherwise?
Making pizza with me.
There is one way that I like to start the show. There is no right or wrong answer to this question. What's good dough?
When I hear what's good dough, I think of what's up, or obviously what makes good dough. So for me, really boils down to the pizza maker, and honestly, at the end of the day, I think what makes good dough is the amount of love that's put into it by the maker.
At the end of the day, it's like recipes get passed around. You can share all that you can on Instagram, but you are not going to make a pizza like the person you're learning from. You ultimately have to make the pizza yourself and learn how to make good pizza.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what we're all striving for, is that perfect dough every single time that you make it. But unfortunately, it's never the case. It's
harder than it looks.
Dude, it is. I've been doing this now, it started late 2019, give or take. And the biggest thing out of all of it is just continuous improvement. Being a sponge, soaking up as much knowledge as you can, trial and error, that's been a big part of my concept, is just trying to find ways to improve, my recipes, whether it's through ingredients, process changes, fermentation practices, things like that. And being a student of your own craft and learning from your mistakes.
Yeah. Great points. How did you learn?
So it's funny to reflect back on my entire work career. So at the age of 14, I got my first job in a banquet house. And that banquet house actually had a pizza program. Through all my jobs from that first job to my most recent job prior to starting this business, every job I've had has had pizza in it in some way, shape, or form, which is like so funny to think back on. But that was like never something that like I truly like loved. I want to say my late teens, I picked up my first job in an actual pizzeria where it was just like pizza driven. And then from there worked in, a few different restaurant concepts, but pretty much like from the age of 17 through my like mid 20s, early 20s was like pizza focused restaurants. And quite frankly, everything that I learned in those restaurants was all what not to do when it comes to making pizza. And in 2018, I took a trip to Italy that completely changed my life and perspective on pizza.
Sounds like an amazing trip. Sounds like you really like saw a different light of things.
Yeah, man. And it was the first time I'd ever seen. So my truck is actually a three-wheeled Piaggio Ape that I imported from Naples, Italy. And it's funny though, because I took one photo of this little vintage vehicle, and I love them because they're all over Italy and buzzing through the streets. And it's just so funny to see three dudes just crammed in the cabin of one of these. And I just love them. And I took one photo of one while I was there, and one little video clip. And finally, like when I thought to pull out my phone and record something, it was like during like the last vehicle that was coming up, or the last Ape that was coming off a ferry, because it was like a ferry that were waiting to get on, that was unloading like vehicles, and every vehicle that was coming off of this ferry was Ape after Ape. It was like a scene from a circus. It was hilarious. And the very last one was this beautiful like red and white like food truck. And that was the last clip that I recorded. Or the last like, or at the point where I decided, let me pull my phone on and get some content of this. And yeah, it ended up, and eventually like, nearly a year later became like my branding and like my concept. So it's pretty neat, all these experiences kind of shape who you are throughout life. And that was one experience that kind of shaped, the branding and concept behind my food truck.
For sure. Let's talk about the food truck. You said Piaggio Ape. Is that
Yes,
right?
Piaggio Ape, which Ape means bee in Italian, because those things, they literally sound like they're buzzing. So essentially, it's a three-wheeled motorcycle. And you see them very, very predominantly through like Central America. You see them in Asia, also known as tuk-tuks.
Tuk tuks.
And
Yeah.
Piaggio Ape is the Italian brand, owned by, oh my goodness, what's the big company that owns Vespa? Essentially, Vespa and Piaggio are nearly the same
Cool.
exact thing. So yeah, three-wheeled motorcycle,
Okay.
two-stroke engine. It goes like 30 miles per hour, top speed. So it's definitely a local street legal, a vehicle, and it's actually technically not legal in the U.S. The only way you can get them here in the U.S. is to import it as an antique or a classic. So mine's a 1981 P601, which is the largest model that I could get here. And yeah, we literally imported it from Naples, Italy. We bought it as is, had it imported to the U.S. And I actually drove all the way across the country from New York State to California and back, and turned it into an epic road trip.
I guess weren't you scared buying this classic like vehicle that I don't know. When I think of classic cars, I think of maintenance.
Dude, that has been that was like the biggest thing for me when starting out. Well, one, I gotta tell you this story. So like when I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do, the plan was to get like the quintessential workhorse box truck, and have like four rock box ovens on the back because I didn't want to buy a big wood burning oven. And those workhorse box trucks are a pretty penny, even for some of the ones that are in the most, excuse my language, but shit condition.
Yeah.
And those workhorse box trucks, like, yeah, they're cool, but then I wanted to come up with something completely unique. Came across this page, Peddling Pizzas, for the first time. And then
Adam.
I saw, yeah, Adam from Peddling Pizzas, and I saw this vintage truck. I'm like, oh my God, I love these vehicles. And for a brief time, I totally forgot these vehicles existed. And I'm like, this is it. I got to do this concept here in the US. Very basically the same exact like model as Peddling Pizzas, Neapolitan style, three-wheel vintage truck, Piaggio Ape. And from there, it was like really figuring out how the hell do I get this vintage truck here in the US. So from then on, that evening, literally on the drive home, I'm like, go to my wife, Sarah. I'm like, you're driving home. I got some browsing on the internet to do. So I was browsing from my phone, doing as much research as I could. And then from the time it took to get from my cousin's house to the time it took to get home, I found a couple businesses here in the US that imported them. At the time, I wanted to say the business was called Piaggio Ape USA. Now it's Vintage Italian Truck USA. And one of them got back to me, and it was the gentleman who was in California. And the gentleman in California, I had reached out to him over Instagram, asked like 10 to 15 questions. What's the maintenance like? What's the cost of this? All these, bombarded him with questions, and no response. So I'm like, okay, I probably was so annoying over Instagram. So that's probably why he never reached out to me. But in any event, I found his website and I went on the contact form while I was at work the next day, like shot him an email like, hey, here's my name, here's my number. Super interested in getting one of these vehicles. Would love to connect on a call to kind of talk through some of this stuff. 5 minutes later, that person calls me and he's like, are you from Rochester, New York? I'm like, yeah. He's like, never in 100 years did I think someone from my hometown would call me to purchase one of these. I'm like, get the hell out of here. You're full of shit. This guy was not full of shit. He graduated from a high school here in Rochester, New York. And like, he knew of like where the beach is by my house and like all these highways. So I'm like, there's no way this guy's looking up all this random stuff from the city of Rochester. And we made that connection. And I was just like, if this isn't a sign for me to do this with my life, and I am an absolute fool. And that was the start of it. So yeah, imported this three-wheel vehicle through this gentleman out in California. And it took about, I want to say it was 2019 when I officially purchased it, like the fall of 2019. And I was expected to pick it up like May of 2020.
How much did that thing cost to bring over from Italy?
So it was $9,500, and that cost for the vehicle and the shipping. And it really was, in my opinion, inexpensive, a fraction of the cost of getting a workhorse box truck. Because even some of the ones that are in rough condition, workhorse box trucks, you're still talking $50,000 to $60,000, bare bones for a 1980 workhorse box truck. So fraction of the cost. And, again, it was imported from Italy as is. It was this really, really atrocious yellow. And my father-in-law is actually, he owns a body shop. So him and I did the build ourselves. And built out the box, and we painted it official Ferrari paint too. So like the white's official Ferrari paint, the red's official Ferrari paint. So the thing's badass, man. It really is. And I'm super proud to have it.
That's cool. I love how much it pops. Like, it is so beautiful. If for anyone listening on Instagram, just needs to check it out on Instagram. You can see it on the video feed if you're watching on Spotify. Luis has like a logo at the very bottom right corner of it, and like, you can't miss it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of a kind, especially in like Rochester, New York. There's an awesome a pretty good Italian community here in the Rochester area, and some of the people who may have immigrated from Italy and they see this vehicle, they're just mind blown to like, this is a piece of home. You're bringing authentic, or Neapolitan style pizza to Rochester. Not only that, you're bringing a Piaggio Api from our country. And it's like one of those things like the pizza is almost a nostalgic thing and experiencing the vehicle, taking them back to their childhood or whatever it may have been when they were back home. So all in all, it's been awesome just to have it. And the mobile food business is a very labor intensive concept, and I knew that it wasn't going to be the plan the whole time, and eventually would expand it to a brick and mortar, but I didn't expect it to be as soon as it was. But here I am, man.
Going back to your story a bit, like you were at the brewery, and then when the ape got to you, were you then mobile and ditched the brewery, or would you still go to the brewery? How did that all work out?
So we started out with the breweries in general, and really just created like residencies at different breweries, cideries, and wineries in the Rochester area. It started out with our mobile setup without the truck, and then by 2020 we had the full-fledged concept going, and we would essentially haul the vehicle from destination to destination with the cargo van and trailer. And really just partnered with local breweries, cideries, and wineries because it was a win-win, for us walking into a business that already has an established customer base, and we're feeding their customers. Their customers aren't leaving to go to restaurants to get food. They're staying there. Now they're drinking one or two more beers. They might be buying another pizza in the evening. And really just, it was a symbiotic relationship between me and those breweries, cideries, and wineries. And then from there, it started to become private parties. So 2021, we went from having like private parties in 2020, and then to 32 private parties in 2021. Because as you know, many people had to reschedule their weddings and birthday parties and things like that to 2021. So we were pretty much jam packed all of 2021 with mobile events, and we worked our tails off. In 2020, once things were opened up for us, we were very fortunate to have beautiful weather so that mobile businesses were thriving, more so than like your brick and mortars, because during the time at the height of the pandemic, at least for New York State, there was no indoor dining at all. So really, a lot of these breweries that had huge patios and outdoor seating that could provide social distancing between the tables, we were able to partner with some of those larger breweries that were still able to get 150 to 200 people out in their outdoor space. So it was very, very much a win-win for us. I think we had maybe like 2 events that got rained out in the entire 2020 and 2021 season, which is absurd to think about, but we were very lucky. And then, 2021 just really worked our tails off, Thursday to Sunday, week to week, hustling from, one brewery on Thursday night to another brewery on Friday night to a winery on Saturday. And then, doing private parties in between there. And honestly, like my plan was to do mobile events all throughout 2022 and entertain looking into our brick and mortar space of this year, but it ended up happening like, at the end of 2020, I started looking into commercial space.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you make the transition? Yeah. How did you make the transition so quickly from mobile space to brick and mortar? Is your brick and mortar like, did you have to invest a lot into it?
So here's the thing. So I wasn't planning on getting into a brick and mortar space at all. I was just like late 2020. Once fall hits, especially here in Rochester, New York, we're basically in Canada. We get a lot of snow. We get brutal winters. We're about an hour outside Buffalo, New York, and like from me to Canada is 3-hour drive to Toronto, downtown Toronto. So we get brutal winters. So like once end of September rolled around, early October, that's when we basically stopped doing mobile events. And at that point, I just really got obsessed with pizza in general, more than just Neapolitan style pizza, but other styles of pizza within the pizza industry that were trending. So I was doing a lot of R&D at home and bringing pizza to former regular customers who would come to pop-up events, friends, things like that. And um, one of my buddies had pointed out this brick and mortar space to me, and was like, "Hey, man, I came across this space on Facebook. It's a former pizzeria. You should look into it." And I'm like, I'm not really planning on it, but like a lot of, or not at this time, but a lot of my customers are like, when are you going to get a brick and mortar space? Why are you going to make us chase you around Monroe County, going from different venue to different venue? And I'm like, I know it's not sustainable. I know people are only going to, follow you for so long. So I knew like within those first few years to get into a brick and mortar space at some point. So I reached out to that person who is leasing this or trying to get someone to rent the space from them. And it was that night, reached out to him. And I went and saw the space the very next morning with my wife and went in there and basically was like, here's our food truck concept. Here's my vision. And me and the landlord hit it off. And, the landlord was willing to front a good portion of the remodel, and basically front it to me, and I would repay it over the duration of my lease. So it was added into my total rent at the end of the month, and it only increased my rent by like $250, over the 5-year span. So he allowed me a blank canvas, so I was really able to build it out exactly the way I envisioned it. And yeah, so by early 2021, I had announced it to the community saying there's a new pizzeria coming to Rochester, New York. And when I decided to take that leap, I didn't want to rebrand and come up with a whole new social media page or anything like that. I decided to call it the Pizza Garage. So that's technically what my brick and mortar is. Peels on Wheels is a food truck. And we have our vintage truck parked on display in our dining area. So technically a takeout pizzeria, but the vintage truck is in the dining service area for customers to see as soon as they walk in. And we got a garage door on the face of the building, allows us to pull the vintage vehicle in and out, or the Piaggio Ape in and out of the building for private events. And at this point now, it's just really just doing a few private events this year and likely retiring it after this year so I can fully focus on the pizzeria and growing the pizzeria over the course of the next few years.
Wow. I'm really happy to hear that you found a landlord that worked so well with you. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like they're helping you succeed so that you can be a long-term renter, right?
Yeah. So it ended up working out really, really well, and one of the biggest things that I was pressing was during like the lease negotiation was a substantial size walk-in cooler. When I say substantial size, I wanted like 150 square foot walk-in cooler, and I got myself a 150 square foot walk-in cooler. So it allows me to do all these different styles of pizza. And like people that like see my walk-in cooler who are either have worked in the restaurant industry or have a food truck, they see the walk-in cooler, they're like, holy cow. Like my walk-in cooler is bigger than some of the large production brewery walk-in coolers that are in Rochester. So it's pretty awesome to see. But it allows me and enables me to be able to offer these different styles of pizza, and practice and have the fermentation practices that I want to do for my pizza. So it's pretty neat.
Yeah, let's talk about your fermentation processes and the different styles that you make. I was reading your website and says that you make a hybrid between a New York style and Neapolitan style.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Talk to me
So
about that.
so I grew up in the Bronx in New York City. So New York style pizza is very much near and dear to my heart. It's one of the styles of pizza that brings me back to my childhood, and I left New York City, or my parents decided to move to Geneseo, New York. So we went from New York City to Western Central New York, complete culture shock. I mean, never seen a farm, deer, cows, let alone grass in real life. And my parents decided to move us out that way. And from there, there was really not much good New York style pizza, in that area. And it was one thing I missed throughout, my teens and into my early adult life. And I'm a little biased when it comes to what's the best style of pizza. But again, it's because I grew up in New York City, and New York style pizza is one of the most popular style pizzas throughout, not only New York City, but throughout the US. So yeah, I started making Neapolitan style pizza for my truck. And really, there's this like seismic shift within the pizza industry over the course of the last few years, where a lot of these restaurants are switching from like combustion ovens being like wood burning ovens, gas ovens, to these electric deck ovens where you can really, have so much control over the temperature and the settings on the oven, and create something truly unique and special, because you're able to control the ceiling temperature, the door temperature, the floor temperature, and really make your pizza unique. So love Neapolitan style, love New York style. And you're seeing, and again, the trends within the pizza industry. I was just inspired to come up with like a neo New York. So like our pizza's baked right around like 675 degrees Fahrenheit. The settings are a little bit different for the ceiling, the door, and the floor. And we are utilizing a 4-flour blend. It's a hybrid, being sourdough and commercial yeast. It's fermented a minimum of 96 total hours. And you're talking about 104 total hours before it even hits the oven. So it's truly, a labor of love. It's bulk fermented for half of the time, and fermented for another 48 hours in a bald state, for the last 2 days of its fermentation. So that's our New York. And really, like, the characteristics of our pizza, it's got leopard spotting, blistering, char sparks, or char spots, consistent with wood fire style pizza or Neapolitan style pizza. But then it also has like the texture of a New York, that snap in the crust. And it, to me, in my opinion, there's no pizza like it within my city. And that's attributed to our fermentation process for it, the ingredients that we're utilizing for it, not to mention the equipment that we're utilizing for it. So my oven is actually, and it's funny how things come full circle, but I took a pizza course in 2019 in Canada with an Italian chef, pizza chef called Davide D'Eramo. Has become one of my closest friends within the pizza industry, and we've remained in touch since I took that course with him. And the company that had this course that I'm now an instructor for, that I was a student at 2 years ago, and now I'm teaching courses there. But not only that, I purchased my heavy equipment from them. So the oven that I'm utilizing, it's called a Tauro deck oven, or Toro deck oven. It's developed in Verona, Italy, and I had it custom made and imported from Italy. It's this beautiful, bright red, and black, very much in line with my branding. Got myself a spiral mixer, and it's a combination of, like I said, our fermentation and those tools that allow us to make pizza that, in my opinion, again, is truly one of a kind. And pizza should be, it's my interpretation of what, or my version of a New York style. And yes, it may be not the exact characteristics of traditional New York style, but at the end of the day, what's New York style? Thin, crispy pizza, that's foldable and able to eat on the go.
They look pretty and they look beautiful. I'm just questioning, like, how is there a way to streamline the process? 104 hours of fermentation, 4 flours, a spiral mixer, different oven temps. It sounds
Everyone's like, what are you doing? And one of my friends within the pizza industry, super, super talented pizza chef out of Buffalo, New York, and his pizzeria has been in, God, what's that magazine? I can't even think it, but he's always been in the top 100 best pizzerias in the US. And they were just 28th, or his former, he ended up selling it to an employee. But anyway, his name is Jay Langfelder. Moved from Buffalo to Savannah, Georgia, and now he's part of Big Bone Pizza out in Savannah, Georgia. But he's been my mentor, one of the mentors. A few people in this industry have kind of guided me, helped navigate through it, educated, but he's definitely one of the biggest ones. And, after talking with him, he's like, dude, if you enjoy the final product and your customers love what you're doing and it is, in your opinion, special, do what you want to do. And a lot of what we're doing, in his opinion, and again, he's got far more pizza experience than me. He's like, a lot of what you're doing makes sense, and yeah, we actually started out just doing like 36-hour dough. And I was finding I wasn't getting like the spotting and the blistering and the coloring that I really like. So then we push it to 48. And then we're like, all right, let's push it to 72. And I wasn't planning on going more than 72. But like at this point, there was a day or a week where I was going to be away for a while. And to help my general manager out, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to produce all of my dough for Wednesday and Thursday on Saturday. And it was just like going to be a one-time thing to help him out, my GM. And then he started sending me photos of the pizza. He's like, dude, this is gorgeous. And he's like, the only difference is one more day of fermentation. And it's crazy to think about that just one more day in a bulking and bald state, like completely changed the characteristics of our dough, like night and day. And from then on, we're like, I don't know if we can go back. Cause like the people who are like some of the regular customers that like had been getting our pizza for consistently 1 day a week to 2 days a week. They're like, that week specifically, he's like, what happened with the dough? And we thought, oh shit, they don't like our pizza anymore. And really, he's like, I've never had anything like it. It looks entirely different. It tastes entirely different. And it was attributed to that additional day of fermentation. That was kind of a fluke thing. So it's pretty neat. But yeah, we've just kept it and it's worked for us. We're only open Wednesday through Saturday. So basically produce all my dough for Wednesday and Thursday on Saturday every week. And then Monday and Tuesday, I produce my dough for Friday and Saturday that week. So it's worked for our schedule, and it's allowed me to have somewhat of a day off on Sundays. But all in all, yeah, everyone says, dude, you're nuts. What the hell are you doing? And for me, it's part of the process that we've created. It is definitely and most certainly a labor of love. It takes me anywhere from 10 to 12 hours of just prep time, from making the dough, allowing it to ferment, then coming in on Monday, portioning and dividing all of that dough and pan stretching all of my pan pizzas on that day, like stuff like that. But in all reality, it just works for our workflow, and it lessens the load during service days where we need full attention to production and some of the other day-to-day prep work. We make our own cheese in house. We're roasting our own mushrooms and going to the public market to source our produce, like all that stuff. And it allows us to do that because we get the bulk of our dough prep out of the way by the day of service.
That's impressive. I mean, all that labor, if it ends up turning out as good as you make it sound, like I can see you in that list of top pizzerias to visit for sure.
I
If you're
appreciate
not already
that.
on there, I'm not sure.
I
Yeah.
appreciate
I feel
that.
like, yeah, I feel like all the people that you see at the very top are people who take dough as seriously as you do. So,
Yeah, and I'm very
keep it
much
up.
a numbers. I've always been like a math and science guy. Growing up, it just all made sense to me. And now, like when I took that pizza making class at Italiana Food Tech in Canada, um, it changed everything for me, like about fermentation. And when I was showing him some of my like photos and archived work of some of the dough that I'd been making, he was showing me like, all right, well, looking at these photos, this was over fermented. These are characteristics of having over fermented dough, and like I had no idea what any of that was. And when I took that course, I really learned about the science behind fermentation and the process in which of implementing ingredients when making specific doughs, and what happens with baking at certain temperatures and understanding like flours in general when it comes to making pizza, because no two flours are the same. And when I took that course, that was really when it opened my eyes and I became really much obsessed with pizza at that point. And from there, just staying dedicated to looking and finding ways to improve and learning. And that's been like the whole model the entire time since we started, serving a quality pizza in low quantities. And we've seen this like seismic shift within the restaurant industry where you're seeing people sell out. And honestly, I think that's great. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You want to try and eliminate, having to turn customers away. But when you create a novelty and your customers are inapt or in tune with the way you run things, they're gonna, seek out that product. If it's a quality product, people aren't afraid to pay for. And if it's executed in a good manner consistently, your customers are gonna come back. Quality of food and service go hand in hand.
Are you using the same dough for all three styles that you're making?
For New York style, we do that Wednesday through Saturday. That's one specific dough recipe. We do Motor City Wednesdays where we do our Detroit style. That's another dough recipe. My Neapolitan style dough, obviously, being another recipe. My Sicilian and Detroit style, or Sicilian and Grandma style, one dough recipe. And then eventually I'm going to introduce pizza romana for like lunch as a lunch option on either Fridays. I'm thinking Fridays. And that's going to be another style or another dough recipe. So there's no one single dough recipe that's versatile for a couple. Could I get away with doing that? Probably with like my Sicilian and grandma dough, but it's a little bit different in the ingredients. My Sicilian and grandma is more like a traditional pizza Italia type of dough recipe, high hydration, whereas my Detroit is a lower hydration, being a 70% hydration. But each one is a blend of a few different flours, so it's definitely very much artisan. And I'm slowly but surely developing a relationship with a mill and wheat farmer, a local wheat farmer, to try and replace some of the flours that I'm utilizing. So I use King Arthur, some Italian flours being Caputo, La Stagioni, Bellini Pazzini. So we have like 12 or 13 different flours that we're utilizing in the restaurant right now. And I'm trying to, yeah, it's a lot, man. It truly is artisan. And I'm trying to educate my customers on that. Like, no two dough recipes are the same. I get it all the time. Like, people call me on a Friday and like, hey, I want to order a Detroit. Well, we only offer it on Wednesdays. They're like, why do you only do that? I mean, you have dough there. Because I want to make it a novelty. It's work for us. We sell 75 every single Wednesday in addition to, 50 rounds, or vice versa. And it's just as work for us, and it allows us to really execute each piece at a high level. Because like I said earlier, quality goes hand in hand, quality of service, quality of food. And for me, I want every pizza to be executed at a high level. And in order to do that, your employees can only sustain so much of a workload during a dinner service. Your equipment can only sustain so much of a workload in a dinner service. You can only prep so much in an 8-hour day. And very much high quality product in low quantities. That's our concept and model, and been that way since we were with the food truck, and selling anywhere up to 100 total pizzas in a day on any given week. So on Wednesdays, we typically sell like 70, 75, 8x10 inch Detroit style pizzas. And then right around, like I said, somewhere around 40 to 50 New York style rounds. And we only do 3 rounds every 15 minutes, and we do only 8 squares every 15 minutes. And those are the numbers that we feel best, allows our oven to recover, is a good pace for our staff. Even if we're short one, it's still sustainable to still be able to hit those numbers at the end of the day. And on Thursdays, same kind of concept. We sell right around 30 total 14 by 14 inch pan pizzas, being a mix of Sicilian and grandma. and I sell somewhere around 20. Actually, it's more like 30 to 40 New York style rounds, and we have two different sides of rounds that we offer.
How many pies do you do on a Saturday when it's just rounds? Hey, Pizza Pal. I just want to say thank you for listening to the show so far, and thank you for making it all the way here. Before we get on to the end of the show, I want to remind you all to please leave a rating on the podcast. You could do it right now. Just go ahead and click 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify or Apple. It will greatly help the show. I appreciate you so much. And if you're looking to buy an uni or a second uni, the affiliate link helps the show so much. So please use that anytime you're considering a new oven. All right, enjoy the rest of the show.
We try to keep it right around 100. Typically produce because I do two sizes, 18 inch and 14 inch. So I usually produce 55 18-inch portions with sometimes, depending on the time of year, anywhere from 36 to 42 of the 14-inch. And it's right around, like I said, right around 100. Closer to football season, we start to pick up a little bit in the fall. And again, I'm just about to celebrate 1 year of operating the brick and mortar. At the end of this month, July 29th, is technically 1 year service open to the public. So comparing, month to month, our busier months, and again, it could be skewed because that's around when we open. So there was definitely a lot of excitement, but I really do anticipate the fall and the winter going into football season being our busier months out of the year. But yeah, somewhere around 100, give or take. And again, that's just shooting for around 6 total rounds every 15 minutes is what we pushed for. And that's where we really, because we tried doing 120 to 150, and that's really pushing the limits on my staff and pushing the limits on the equipment. And instead of having 3 pizzas in there that are able to saturate with as much heat, we have 6 in there, and it allows our oven to recover that much quicker, and we don't have to maneuver pizzas so much in the oven, having 4 or 5 in there in the deck at any given time. So very much a learning curve that we've decided that 6, I mean, the quality is just far superior, working with a lower quantity and 15-minute slots.
At the end of the day, it seems like quality is your leading, anything when it comes to whatever business decision you make. It's how do I keep the quality up? And I applaud you for that.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's been very much part of the concept. Like I said, when I went to Italy, that changed everything for me. Keeping every component at such a high quality in the pizza making process leads to an overall a very enjoyable pizza eating experience. And we started with that concept with our food truck, and we've continued that concept. A small number of a high quality product. And like I said, when you create that novelty piece, you almost build a cult a customer base where your people are ordering who love your squares every single Wednesday. Your people who love your Sicilians and grandmas, they're ordering every single Thursday. And then you got the people who just love rounds. And there's no way we'd probably be able to offer any other style pizza on a Friday and Saturday service. Our rounds just trump. I mean, we wanted to do Saturday squared and thick Thursday, where we do our Detroit style and New York style and Sicilian and grandmas on Thursdays, and same with Saturdays. But it was just too much work, just because all 3 pizzas are just so different, and baking times and the logistics of trying to offer 3 different styles of pizza at any given time, let alone 2, is very difficult to manage. Because again, every type of pizza has different characteristics, needs different ingredients, and has different bake times, and so we just figured keeping them novelties on specific days and making a fun name for each day. We call it Motor City Wednesdays, and people now are calling it and recognize it as Motor City Wednesdays. And we call it Thick Thursdays. Thick Thursdays for a reason. We're selling, Sicilian and grandma style on Thursdays in addition to our rounds. So it just has worked out for us. And I don't think being a year into it, changing it up is going to do me any justice.
No, keep it up. I mean, I said we'd talk about branding, and maybe you could just, you've gone over Motor City Wednesday and Thick Thursday. Maybe you can just answer me this one question that I've been dying to know, but who does your website? It's like very crispy clean.
So I utilize GoDaddy. It's been a collective effort between my wife, me, my sister-in-law. Actually, she's a graphic designer. She's the one who developed my branding. So it's been awesome to go on this journey with my family. My parents have been very much involved with it. My in-laws have been very much involved with it. My wife, obviously being a wife of a pizza chef and business owner, she very much lives this business as much as I do. But all in all, it's been neat to share those experiences with my closest loved ones. But yeah, and my father-in-law being a part of the build, and me sharing that experience with him and building this thing out together. Very, very awesome experience all in all.
Amazing. Well, congrats to you and your family for making this happen. There are two questions that I want to get out of you before we wrap this up. There is, what is one mistake in pizza, business, or life that you've experienced that you can share with others so that we can avoid it?
One mistake made during business. I mean, there's just so many like little things that occur throughout all of it. For me, I'm trying to think. I can't sit here and say that everything's been perfect. I guess it's more of getting to know your community, and really developing, relationships with your customers, and not only that, but your purveyors and farmers. So at first I had this idea of, sourcing things, from local sustainable farms using what's in season, but like I wasn't making the effort to develop those relationships with those farmers. But that was really more so because I was trying to get the brick and mortar open and start making pizza. But I'd say, don't make the mistake of not listening to your community. Listen to your customers when they provide feedback. Definitely want to listen to that feedback, because without that feedback, you can't improve. If you're falling short of those customers, really have the courage to stick with your concept. You definitely don't want to not do that. Our concept's very much unique in the aspect of, the sourcing local ingredients and animal proteins from local sustainable farms, and being a takeout pizzeria. That's a tall order. At the end of the day, there's this image of a takeout pizzeria. You just make some dough, you toss some sauce on it and some cheese on it, and you're on your way. Where we're very much a cross between your fine dining pizza as well as takeout pizza. But I think it's important to build those relationships and support local businesses too when doing it, especially if you're a small business, because your relationships with your businesses around you are very important to how you're perceived by your community, and not to mention how you're known within your community. And having those friendships are very important, when being a small business. So
Yeah. I mean, I've never heard it put in that way. Like making relationships with your purveyors is actually super key. I've heard people make sure to listen to your customers for sure, but the way you put it is sound advice.
awesome.
What do you want to leave the audience with today?
So for me, and this is something like really over the past year, I've really come into my own as a pizza chef, and I think people get caught up too much into what's authentic. And at the end of the day, yes, there's authentic characteristics to every component of the pizza making process or every style of pizza. But just like being a chef in a fine dining restaurant or being a pizza chef, it's all interpretation on what it is. And when I went to the Pizza Expo and I heard Tony Gemignani talking about Sicilian style pizza, and he really harped in on what the characteristics of Sicilian style pizza are. And in his mind, it was almost like he was harping in on like a lot of people making Roman style pizza and calling it Sicilian style pizza. And at the end of the day, who gives a shit what anyone else thinks about your pizza aside from you and your customers? So don't get caught up in what everyone else says about you and what your pizza not being authentic New York or authentic Sicilian style. I mean, if you are shooting for authentic, you should be offering authentic. But I don't think it does anyone justice by trying to continue making, you know, an authentic type of pizza. I think it's important for you to interpret it whatever way you want. If that's your interpretation of what a Sicilian or a New Haven or a Neapolitan is, and you want to market it that way, go right ahead. But the biggest thing is listening to your customers and getting that feedback while doing it. But don't get too caught up on what the traditional characteristics of each style of pizza are. If you want to market it as what it is, then do that. Just love what you make at the end of the day.
I love it. Great advice. Luis, thank you so much for being on the show. I really learned a lot from you.
I appreciate the opportunity. I'm so upset that it's taken us this long to get connected, man. I feel like me and you would vibe really well. Hopefully be able to connect someday in person, nonetheless.
I want to make, I want to be able to eat at your pizzeria before you get on the top list. Otherwise, I might not be able to get a pizza. No, seriously, like I admire your pizzas from afar so much. And yeah, I'm just, after hearing the process and the love and the care that you put into it, like I want to try it even more now. So
I really
thank
do
you for
appreciate
sharing that with me
man.
and the listeners.
No, not a problem. If I can share my story and it helps someone else, you know, along the way, then, you know, it's a win-win for me and every person who's a part of that pizza community. I don't know it all, you know, and if you are someone who thinks you know it all, there's something wrong, because there's a sea of information out there for and experiences for all of us to learn from. And quite frankly, just having that continuous improvement mindset is what's important at the end of the day in anything you do, not just pizza making, anything.
Luis, thank you so much for being on the show and educating me and the listeners. I'm truly impressed by what you're doing, and I admired it a lot. I can't wait to have pizza with you someday, and I can't wait to see your pizza journey continue. To you, the listener, in case you were wondering earlier what my opinion is on this novelty style pizza, I dig it. I really dig it. As long as you can make money off of it. Because if you're running this business and you're putting in all that time, you know, will the money come? Perhaps. I think so. I'd like to think so. I think you'd get a lot of fame for it. And I think you'd get a lot of attention for it. And so if the business can sustain itself and you can keep this making this amazing product, hell yeah, go for it. More power to you. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to follow Luis on Instagram at Peels on Wheels or Pizza with Perez. Link will be in the show notes. Slide into their DM and let them know what's good dough. I appreciate you. I love you. Till next time. Peace.